Michael Costigan. You're a producer for Aggregate Films, and this season you worked on the limited series Lessons in Chemistry and the comedy series Thriller, based on a true story. Now, those shows alone are very different from each other.
Yeah,
How do you decide on projects in general?
I know. I wish I really, Jason and I laugh all the time that if we could define what we do, we'd be a lot more successful, but it never seems to work. But, you know, I think what strikes both of us, both Bateman and myself, is, what feels original. And even if it has classic bones or wholly original, how has a story not been told before? Who are our favorite artists who we're lucky enough to meet and have a new idea about something, or we have half of an idea, they do, that collaboration that, can create something that frankly we want to watch, because that's the only way we can really base it. If it's something that we're intrigued by, we're hoping that the audience too feels like it's original. um you know when Jason and I first started Aggregate, now over 5 years ago, one of the things we talked about a lot was, when you look at Ozark, which was, which Jason and Chris Mundy and that incredible cast, Laura and everyone created, um, what they loved and what I loved about that was taking a show where this propulsive crime drama, but where you're rooting for a family, and who you're rooting for is to do terrible things, or what compromises will they do to protect their family. So in a way, it's their version of a family show, but with criminality, where you're perversely rooting for them to join up with the Mexican crime lords, and then in a very dramatic way. But then also Jason so enjoyed his time doing Arrested Development, which also a family show, but absolutely hilarious. And what we decided from the beginning was, how do we do both? Meaning, what are, those shows that are going to compel you in a really dramatic way, in a character that pulls you in, that you are sitting side by side with and really pulls you through. And in Aggregate, also looking for those out of the box ideas, like based on a true story, where literally you are rooting for these people to pull something off that feels complicated and maybe a little morally dubious. But because, again, back to what we really believe in here at Aggregate, is like working with our favorite artists, Kaylee and Chris Messina, great actors, deeply hilarious. And then Tom Bateman, who has really exploded, who's an incredible theater actor, has done film work, but literally plays this fine line, who really has, come to the fore. They can pull, it's all a balancing act, and it lands on the head of a pin, and they really pulled it off. And we're so proud of them, but also literally can't stop laughing our heads off as we watch them, and the show.
And with Based on a True Story, you have this couple who, decides to make a podcast about a serial killer with the serial killer. When you first heard that premise, original is certainly something that would come to mind, but like, were you skeptical at all about how that would work as a comedy? Were you excited about it? Like, what were your thoughts?
Well, it's a good question, because it's a real insight how the partnership here works. And what I so enjoy about it is, I literally, my jaw hit the ground, because again, we don't know in the beginning of the season that he's the killer. So to find out that they know and they're going to do this, I thought that is so crazy and so hilarious. And we said, wait, is it a drama? Is it a comedy? And the writer, and creator, Craig, said it's both. And that's where Jason and I looked at each other, and he had this huge like grin on his face. He's like, great. And we just thought, something that is that bold and complicated, that can be really entertaining, honestly could also be about something, which is our culture's obsession with true crime, which, why is other people's tragedy our entertainment? I think we're all wondering why, that it could really be both. But then at the end, so Craig is pitching the last scene that you watch in the pilot, where Chris Messina's character takes Tom Bateman down to the ocean, and they're going to go surf. And all of a sudden, Tom Bateman's character looks at him and says, "Are you wearing a wire?" And that came because at the very end of the pitch, Jason said, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to have a scene between these two guys? Why wouldn't Tom Bateman's character believe he was being, some sort of entrapment scene, et cetera? And Jason said, well, wait, what if you're at the ocean? You can't wear a wire and you'd have to do this. So basically, watching the producer, director, actor, and Jason already helping with Craig kind of conceive that last scene, that climactic scene of the pilot story, that was so fun to see. And also where I think we both realized this was so compelling and complicated and funny that we really had to run with this.
And were there significant logistical challenges or hurdles you had to overcome to make it? I mean, obviously, when you make any series, it's a sort of a miracle to get anything to made.
Agreed. And that's where I think, honestly, this was one of the things that we like a lot about this is it's not based on IP, and it happened the old-fashioned way where Jason and I ran into an old writer friend of ours who said, I have a really good idea. I want to come see you. And he did. And that's what this show was, and he had been working on and happened. And then really to Craig's credit and to everyone's, he wrote 2 fantastic scripts. And then to the credit of Kaylee, who read and said, wait, again, I don't know what this is. Is this funny? Is it a drama? I can't define it. I love it. I'm in, like that. And then similarly, then to Chris Messina, one of our favorite actors who Jason works with a lot and just somebody we respect so much, same thing, gave him the script. He said, this is kind of bonkers and I love it. And I can relate, which I think, all of us at this stage of life kind of can, of feeling, about living in LA and what happens at a certain age and has life passed you by. And, is this brilliant actor who understands comedy and drama. That's where really Chris came at it, where he's so hilarious and it's so grounded. And Kaylee brought herself to the role. And then, of course, famously, after their first meeting, Kaylee said, can I stay behind and tell you something? We said, sure. She said, by the way, what if this character is pregnant? And we said, wait, what? She said, yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. It would up the stakes. What if this character is pregnant and they need the money? We said, well, that's a really interesting idea. But if she's pregnant, all right, guys, I'm pregnant. We realized, wow. And anyway, we think it made the show even better because it was a real aspect that lended, so much new detail, stakes, and such an interesting character for her to play.
And the show was renewed for a second season. Do you know how far the show could go? Do you know, like, if there's an end point that sort of it's building towards?
Yeah, no, I do know. And, I feel like the viewer, I always want to be surprised in what happens, et cetera. So I'm going to be a good sport with my fellow viewers and not share too much. But basically we all know she's pregnant. They're going to have a child, and what happens next is really compelling. And hopefully everyone will agree. It's really funny also with those two, with Kaylee and Chris and Tom in a whole new way this season.
Now with Lessons in Chemistry, that's based on the novel by Bonnie Garmus. It tells the story about sexism and how the main character Elizabeth Zott overcomes it. How did that come your way, and what excited you about working on that one?
Yeah, well, Lessons in Chemistry falls into yet again another extraordinary writer who writes a story that literally like breaks all the rules, because you can imagine, as we went to pitch it for the very first time, what happens. Oh, it's about a scientist who no one will listen to, and it's period, and it's funny, and she falls in love and he dies. I mean, literally the roadmap. We just thought, but wait, to this day, it's impossible to pitch, which is why it's incredibly gratifying that people have seemed to enjoy the series as much as we loved the book, as much as we loved making it here. That was something we were very lucky to see early. Bonnie Garmus, the novelist, is the most self-deprecating person, so she'll never give herself enough credit. But this is her first novel, which is still hard to believe. At the Frankfurt Book Fair, she was taken on by her amazing book agent, who also through basically drafts had been reading it, et cetera. Felicity Blunt had taken her on. And at the book fair, all of a sudden people had read it. It was selling in all these territories. And so it hit Hollywood, and a brilliant colleague of ours, Jane Pliner, who said, you need to read this tonight. And Jane has the best taste. So again, the old fashioned way, shut the door and read the book and was immediately compelled by this character, by the book, and thought about, well, who could write it? And it really became, interestingly, it sounded tough on the outside, but no one could say no. So, gave it to who we thought, like, who could be Elizabeth Zott? Because it's really specific, as anyone who's seen the show knows, who can play that level of intelligence, who can all these different pieces of it. And so we thought of Brie and sent it to Brie, who literally read it on the weekend and wanted to be our total partner, and really was our producing partner from the very beginning, was involved with every element as we built the whole show. And really, we were so lucky. We had incredible partners at Apple who felt like us, who read the book, who talked to us about it, who got it from the beginning, Michelle Lee and Erica Bello, who had to do it felt as compelled and had to do it as much as we wanted to. Jamie, Zach, Matt, like all of them who said, we love it as much as you do. Because again, there's nothing in here that is conventional. And really, we needed those partners who just kind of were feeling it the way we did. And then it just continued to find the amazing fortune of Lee Eisenberg, who again had read it, deeply felt it, and then signed on, which was not easy. I mean, again, a book that's sprawling, to really put his brain around, how do I tell this? How does it work? It's very unconventional in many ways. How do I do that? And was a tireless and brilliant partner. He worked very closely with Alyssa Karasek and as well Natalie Sandy. And the scripts were fantastic. And department heads and really a crew who loved it as much as we did. We're also used to talking about in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it was a group of people who literally, and I hope it shows on screen, who embraced it fully. Kat Smith, our production designer, Mirren, our costume designer. I mean, people just embraced it. And I think it really felt like a family making it, and which in a way is what the book is like. You don't know where life is going to take you. And we can all, as smart as we are, we still can't, there are things within our control, things outside of our control. And watching this group of people make the show is really one of the most thrilling of my career. Something we're really proud of.
And on your creative team, this story is from a woman's point of view. You had women in the writers' room, women directed the series. How
That's
important was it to have that representation and sort of have an equitable set? And how'd you go about achieving that?
No, critical. And I think that's was always from the very, very beginning of figuring out, and inclusive, and figuring out all of the representation of the book, of the world, of Elizabeth Zott, of the science, of our two incredible scientists. But again, it wasn't bringing in male science advisors, because they wouldn't have had the same experience that Elizabeth did. So our brilliant female science advisors, cooking, both somebody who would know the period, somebody who could recreate it today, Courtney, who was incredible on the bringing the old and new together. Our directors, I mean, an incredible, murderer's row of directors who, I mean, when they got nominated for those DGA awards, it was the most proud moment. An incredible team. So it was always conceived that way from the beginning, because the book is about somebody who's the smartest person in the room, but is not invited into the conversation and has to force her way into the conversation. And while it's period, of course, we all know it's not as well. And that was why from the very, very beginning, it was looking for the best and brightest, but who are our favorite female directors, and really giving a stage to all these brilliant talents. Also Asia, who plays Harriet, her neighbor, who is astoundingly talented, and Lewis Pullman. I mean, it was an entire group really that was very focused on that, and I think everybody feels very proud of that.
And you mentioned the Directors Guild nominations. You yourself were nominated for a Producers Guild award for Lessons in Chemistry. What does that recognition mean to you coming from your fellow producers in the industry?
Well, it really is an incredible honor. Um, it's one of those things where, and this might sound a little Pollyanna, but I don't know how you could just crown one winner, although I loved Beef so much, and Jason and I love Sonny and his whole team, and we were thrilled for his win. Um, but when you look at what the shows were this year and what they continue, the level of quality of all of these shows, it just being included on that list was really an incredible honor, and what means a ton to all of us here and our team at Aggregate. I mean, I have to say, we have an amazing team here that all are deeply a part of it.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on these two shows, everything you've got coming up. I'm sure you're, knock on wood, everything's gonna, come out as you envision it. And good luck this Emmy season with these shows. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And it means a lot to us that you are enjoying our shows. So thanks a lot.